Good evening, horror stories. My name is Wyatt, and for a long time I was a bus driver here in the United States, traveling throughout the southern region of the country. I prefer not to mention the companies I worked for, as it's not relevant to this chilling tale. Over the years, one experiences unusual occurrences in this line of work, constantly traveling on roads, especially at night. However, what I'm about to reveal happened inside the bus. We were returning with my colleague along Route 35, with no passengers, just the two of us. We were off duty, and I don't recall the exact time, but I remember the darkness of the night was intense. We were listening to the radio and chatting a bit when we heard loud banging noises coming from the bus. I immediately lowered the volume of the radio, and we fell silent to try to pinpoint where the sounds were coming from. After a few minutes, we heard the banging again. It reverberated throughout the bus as if someone were kicking it. My colleague walked towards the back seats and took a look from there. He identified that the noises were coming from underneath the bus. The banging sounded even louder from there, and he assured me they were coming from the trunk. We had no idea what was causing them, as with no passengers, the trunk was completely empty. The situation became somewhat confusing. We looked at each other trying to decipher what was happening. We decided to pull the bus over to the side of the road to investigate it further. We stepped out with our flashlights in hand, illuminating the darkness around us. We approached the trunk, and with a knot in our stomachs, my colleague slowly opened the hatch. The flashlight revealed an empty space just as we expected. There was absolutely nothing there. We got back on the bus and continued the journey. My colleague told me that when it was his turn to get some sleep, he felt as if someone sat on the bed and even lay down next to him. He woke up suddenly, thinking he was dreaming, and didn't think much of it at the time. But now he was sure it was something more. Though I found it hard to believe what he was telling me, I listened attentively. I knew he wasn't joking. His face had gone pale instantly as he recounted it. We continued using the same bus for a few more trips, and on several occasions passengers warned us that they heard noises coming from inside the vehicle, as if someone were trapped in there. We didn't know what to tell them. We simply reassured them not to worry, though many became even more frightened. One night, during a particularly long return journey, we decided to make a stop at a rest area in the middle of nowhere. While my colleague checked the bus tires, I took the opportunity to stretch my legs and get some fresh air. Suddenly, I heard a scream and hurried over as fast as I could. Upon arrival, I found my colleague as pale as a ghost, trembling and sweating profusely. He explained between gasps that while checking the bus tires, he saw a dark, blurry figure moving in the darkness. He thought it was an animal. We were in the middle of a forest, so encountering some species on the road was common. But when he tried to approach to confront it, the figure disappeared as if it had vanished into thin air. At that moment, we looked at each other in disbelief, not understanding what was happening, and decided to leave immediately. The rest of the journey was tense and full of nervousness. Every shadow and every sound made our hair stand on end. The situation became so untenable that we had to request a unit change from the company. Passengers constantly complained about loud knocks and whispers during night trips. After several weeks, we were finally assigned another bus. We could never determine the cause of those noises, although there were rumors among the line operators. They said it was the restless spirits of two undocumented youths who, years ago, had hidden in the trunk to travel to another state without identification. Tragically, after being there for so long without air, they had died of asphyxiation. Now we were convinced that those were the spirits of those youths, trapped in our bus for all eternity. Over time, we both avoided mentioning what had happened, but there was always a feeling of unease on every night journey. The experience deeply marked us, reminding us that there are things in this world that defy our understanding, and that the darkness of the night can hide more than meets the eye. If you liked the story, click like. It's just to see if you enjoyed it, or maybe to let me know that you have also experienced paranormal events. Good evening, horror stories. My name is Eric. What I'm about to tell you happened a few years ago when I used to travel by bus 2 or 3 times a year for work from Nashville to other states. I always traveled at night, taking advantage to sleep. Moreover, the bus was almost always empty, and there was little traffic on the road. I remember boarding the bus around 7 p.m. and there was no one else but me. I walked to the back seats and fell asleep completely. I don't know how many hours passed, but it was already dawn when the bus suddenly stopped. I looked out the window and saw ambulances and patrol cars, so I assumed there had been an accident. We had been stopped for over 10 minutes when I noticed a man boarding the bus. I don't know when the doors opened or where he came from. I simply saw him get on and sit in the seat next to mine, which struck me as odd, considering all the other seats were empty. For some inexplicable reason, he chose to sit right beside me. We finally got out of the traffic jam and the bus started moving again. Suddenly, the man next to me began to cry inconsolably. I felt uncomfortable and thought it would be rude not to ask him what was wrong or if he needed anything. However, he wouldn't look at me or respond to my questions. I couldn't relax or fall back asleep as I listened to him cry and lament without pause. I decided to try to calm him down once more, so I gently touched his shoulder and asked if he needed help. To my surprise, he turned to me with an expression of deep anguish on his face without saying a word. Finally, after thinking about it for a few minutes, I decided to change seats. My intention wasn't to make him feel bad by leaving him alone, but since he wasn't talking to me and I couldn't sleep, I opted to move. I needed to sleep since I had to work the next day. As I walked towards the front seats with my bag, one of the drivers got up to go to the bathroom and asked if everything was okay. I responded in a whisper about the man in the back, mentioning that he looked very unwell and was in a deplorable state. I suggested if he could try to talk to him and offer help since he hadn't responded to me. The driver looked at me with a concerned expression and asked which man I was talking about. "No one has boarded since we left the central bus station," he said. I told him I meant the man who had boarded when we stopped on the road due to that accident less than an hour ago. He assured me that they hadn't allowed anyone to board at all, as they are prohibited from picking up passengers outside of designated stops. Additionally, he added that the doors had never been opened. At that moment, an inexplicable chill ran down my spine. I asked the driver to accompany me to the back seats, where the man was, but to my surprise, we found no one there. Not in any other seat, not in the bathroom. I couldn't understand what was happening. Panic began to take hold of me as the driver tried to reassure me, suggesting that maybe it had all been a product of a nightmare when I had fallen asleep. However, I was sure of what I had witnessed and was frustrated that I couldn't prove it. I returned to my seat in shock. When the driver came out of the bathroom, he asked me if I remembered what the man he had seen looked like. I described him as having a black leather jacket and green pants. The driver was silent for a moment and then exclaimed, "It can't be." He explained that during the accident where we stopped, they had seen a man lying on the sidewalk, dressed in a black leather jacket and green pants, who had been hit by a car while riding his motorcycle. At that moment, I felt a wave of bewilderment. How was it possible that the same man lying on the sidewalk had gotten on the bus, sat next to me, and was now nowhere to be found? The driver drove away, leaving me in my seat unable to sleep, terrified that the man would reappear helplessly, knowing that he was a lost soul. Since then, I avoided traveling by bus at night. Of course, I didn't share what happened with my company. They would have called me crazy, and rightly so. Before that night, I never believed in paranormal phenomena. I decided to keep this experience a secret until today, for fear of being judged. But despite my silence, the fear remained, reminding me that there are things in this world that defy our understanding. If you have enjoyed this story, we invite you to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any others. Until next time.